Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. I have something incredibly exciting to share with you today because I am lucky enough to have in my possession the demo kit for Steamforged Games' all-new revised core set for Bardsung. Tale of the Forsaken Glade is a brand new entry point for the system, launching on Gamefound on the 22nd of October 2024, and if you think it might be something you are interested in, you should follow the campaign right now. If you do, and you subsequently make a pledge, you will be entitled to a free gift, and who doesn't like a free gift? I'm going to put a link to the campaign in the video description below so you can head on over and do that, but don't go anywhere just yet, because right now I have the opportunity to give you a sneak peek at just a fraction of what you can expect. The enemies, the heroes, and the adventures with which you will forge your legendary songs. Of course, what we are looking at today is a prototype. Rules and components are subject to change as the campaign progresses. Even so, just look at some of these miniatures. These are 3D printed prototypes and they are gorgeous. When I was unpacking these, I was immediately engaged in the world. I never played the original Bardsung, so I know nothing about the universe in which it's set. But these little goblin things riding on a wolf had me hooked. And this Packmaster, in his badass armour with 3 wolves baying for blood as they yank on their chains. Wow. These are miniatures that tell a story and put interesting new spins on classic tropes we have seen before. There are little gremlin things with bows and spears that walk that fine line between adorable and menacing, but which are mainly adorable. There are brutes in what appears to be wooden armour with massive buster swords, or medieval flamethrowers, which to be honest doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. If I lived in a glade and wore wooden clothing, flamethrower operative wouldn't be my first career choice. But whatever, there is this thing that hopped out of the film The Ritual by way of Pan's Labyrinth, a cadaverous vulture man who looks like a sleep paralysis demon I once knew, and then there is this thing, the living embodiment of the facepalm. I do not like him. We also have a new assortment of 5 heroes to face these foes. I really liked the cool tortoise and bird heroes from the original Bardsung, and I was hoping for more of that kind of nonsense. Alas, we don't get any frog soldiers or snail mages, but the new heroes all look crazy, and they lean heavily into that over-the-top heroic style as they wield gigantic swords or ride around on angry-looking goats. We get a Path Seeker, the range specialist who can cripple targets, the Fire Soul, your basic fire mage who likes to see the world burn, the Dawn Guard, that would be the tank, there are some subtle hints on the miniature, the Demon Blade, a kind of magically imbued soul-stealing assassin, and then the Skull Splitter. No idea what he does. So, to be fair, it's a rather typical bunch of heroes, but the larger-than-life sculpts and unusual designs put enough of a twist on the ideas to be interesting without alienating. But I am probably getting ahead of myself, so let's backtrack slightly. If you are new to Bardsung, you may be wondering what it's all about. If you are a seasoned adventurer, you may be interested to know what this new starter set brings to the table and what changes have been made to the rules. I've got you all covered. First, let's deal with what Bardsung is. Feel free to check out the timestamps in the video description if you want to skip ahead. Bardsung is a fully cooperative campaign-based fantasy dungeon crawling board game for 1 to 5 players, with all that entails. A huge narrative adventure to explore through a series of connected encounters, upgrades to earn for your heroes, monsters to kill, bosses to overcome, secrets to find, and loot to steal. As such, it's way too big to cover in a video like this, and I can only touch on key features briefly. The first thing you will want to do is pick a hero. I'm obviously picking the Archer. He's got a little bird and everything. Each of these characters comes with an initiative card, a profile card that lists their stats on one side and their starting abilities on the reverse, and then a set of cards for those starting abilities. With a team selected, you will read the introduction to the story. This guides you into your first encounter, which is played out using a large board with randomly drawn tile overlays placed on the top. The nature of these encounters will change, the setting, the foes, the objectives, but they all follow a basic format. The heroes begin on the entry tile, which is placed on the corresponding entry symbol on the board, and the echo token is placed with them. This represents the noise they are making, and it will follow them around as they explore, acting as a homing beacon for monsters in the vicinity. If the heroes move quickly, they can outpace this token, but haste comes with its own risks. To start the first turn, you shuffle up the heroes' initiative cards and lay them out at the top of the board to determine the marching order, that is, the turn order for this round. When you encounter monsters, their initiative cards will also be shuffled into the marching order. I have seen this kind of initiative system used to excellent effect in games like Blackstone Fortress, and I'm excited to see it here as it opens up a lot of opportunities for interesting tactical play. On their activation, a hero gets 2 actions. An action is usually moving a number of zones up to the hero's speed value, exploring a portal on the edge of the hero's current zone, or using an ability. Heroes can use the same action twice, and they can use the available actions in any order, but they can only use each of their active abilities once per turn. That means while you can indeed attack twice in one turn, you cannot make the same attack twice in one turn. The first hero to activate in any encounter is probably going to start off by exploring. This requires the hero to be in a zone that has an unexplored portal. If the hero is currently on a trail tile, they draw a clearing card. If they are on a clearing tile, they draw a trail card. The card indicates which tile they should place. The players usually get to choose the orientation, but they are not allowed to place the tile so it overlaps another tile or the board edge. When placing a clearing tile, the player should also draw a trail card for every portal on that clearing tile and then place the corresponding trails as well. The cards may also indicate the presence of monsters. Some will be on the tile, some will be on adjacent trail tiles, and some will appear on the tile where the echo token is currently situated. If there are monsters, you draw an aspect battle card, a special circumstance to add a twist to each combat encounter. You may get an ambush that repositions the monsters, or a special environmental condition that makes your life harder, for example. If there are no monsters, you instead draw an aspect challenge card. These are events that will break up the combats, and they will make the world feel more lived in and real. Here, for example, the heroes have found a magical stream that will stay in play until one hero drinks from it, which will heal 1 wound. Often, aspect challenges, like these noxious spores that are floating around, require a test. To take a test, the player rolls 3d6. If their character card shows the same proficiency symbol indicated on the test, in this case a helmet, they roll 4d6 instead. Additionally, they can spend fate tokens to add 1d6 per fate spent, and heroes on the same or adjacent tiles may also spend one of their valuable fate tokens to grant the player another d6. However, do note that the Noxious Spore card states it is a 1-player test, so other heroes cannot assist in this particular case. And I suppose this is as good a time as any to talk about fate. Each hero starts with a certain amount of fate. The Pathseeker gets 3. These can be used in a variety of ways: to assist in challenges, to empower attacks, to activate strong abilities, and so on. Each hero has their own special way to replenish fate, but it's still a precious resource to use cautiously. Having accumulated their pool of d6, the player then rolls all of the dice, looking to match the target number of the challenge, which in this case is 4. If they match the number of required successes, in this case 2, they pass the test. The card will detail what happens on a success or failure. Finally, an aspect challenge may direct you to read an entry from the narrative book, like this Will-O-Wisp card. These challenges will progress the story and allow for more detailed events than you might otherwise be able to print on a card. Having resolved the aspect card, the round continues, unless new monsters were placed that didn't already have an initiative card in the marching order. If you did place new monsters, you start a new round, shuffling up the initiative cards to create a fresh marching order. And that is when you start brawling. Combat is naturally a big part of the game, and it's relatively straightforward. Heroes attack by using one of their abilities, like our Pathseeker Snapshot. This is a ranged attack that can target an enemy up to 2 zones away. The player rolls 2d6, summing the scores and then adding any attack modifiers. Snapshot has a +2 modifier as standard. If they want to, before rolling, a player can choose to empower their attack. This costs 1 fate token, but lets them roll 3d6 for the attack. Having rolled, the player compares the total to the enemy's target number. This tormented soul has a target number of 8. If the total matches or exceeds the target, the attack was successful. On a success, the player then rolls a damage dice for the attack. For a snapshot, this is a d6, but more powerful attacks may let you roll a d8, d10, or even a d12. The result of this roll is compared to the monster's toughness, which is 4 for the tormented soul. If the roll is less than the toughness, the player scores a hit. If the roll is equal to or higher than the toughness, the player scores a critical hit. The player refers to their ability card to see what effect the attack has had. For snapshot, a regular hit allows the Pathseeker to dodge into an adjacent zone and then push the target into an adjacent zone. On a critical hit, the target takes 1 wound and then the Pathseeker can dodge into an adjacent zone. Other abilities may inflict more damage, allow heroes to regain spent fate tokens, or apply conditions such as burn and stun. Oh, and on a little side note about iconography, I really would have liked more distinct icons for dodge and push. I had to keep checking which arrow meant which effect. Maybe I'm just slow. Regardless, if wounds were applied to the enemy, the player should place wound tokens next to that enemy on the board. If the total number of wound tokens matches the enemy's morale value, 3 for the tormented soul, then you resolve the grit effect. If there is a little tombstone symbol, the enemy is defeated and removed from the board. If there is a blood slash symbol, all wounds are removed and the enemy gains a bloodied token. This may grant them new abilities, but if they should take wounds equaling their morale for a second time, they are removed from play. Every time you defeat an enemy, you randomly draw a loot token and drop it into the loot bag for later. At the end of the encounter, you will get to draw some loot tokens from this bag at random to upgrade your party. When it's time for a monster group to activate, the game employs a simple AI system to determine what they should do. All monsters of the same type will activate when their initiative card turns up in the marching order, and they will all do something based on their behaviour trait, as printed on the bottom of their card. The Tormented Soul has the opportunistic behaviour, which means they will attack a hero in the same zone if possible. If not, they will charge the hero with the most wounds, or the closest hero. Failing all that, they will just move towards the closest hero. The Wolf Riders are much more complicated. They will first act based on the opportunistic behaviour. After resolving that behaviour, they will then act based on the retreat behaviour, moving directly away from the heroes. Finally, if the Wolf Rider is bloodied, they disregard their normal behaviours and instead become frenzied, making them considerably more dangerous. When an enemy attacks, they do not roll dice to hit. Instead, the target of the attack rolls dice to defend. The player rolls 2d6 and adds their hero's resilience, which is 2 for the Dawn Guard. If the result is equal to or higher than the enemy's target number, which you will recall is 8 for a Tormented Soul, then the attack misses. If the result is lower, the hero suffers the effects of the attack. The Tormented Soul inflicts 1 wound and the stunned condition. When a hero takes a wound, they draw a wound card and place it next to their character card. If they have wound cards equal to their morale value, 5 for the Dawn Guard, they are defeated and the heroes lose the encounter. Don't let that happen. Some monsters, like the Brawler, inflict serious wounds instead. When a hero takes a serious wound, they draw a wound card and then they flip it to the serious wound side. Each serious wound has a different effect that will persist. Some last until the hero rests, while some last for a certain number of turns or until the hero spends a required amount of fate, at which point the serious wound is flipped to become a regular wound. This is a wound system reminiscent of Blackstone Fortress, Cursed City, and Hellboy, with a touch of Mansions of Madness and even Gore Chosen thrown in, and it works really well. Being rocked by a powerful strike and picking up a special condition adds an extra element to combat and makes those stronger enemies more intimidating because you know it's going to take a while to walk off the ringing in your ears. But that, I think, covers most of the core elements of gameplay. Once all heroes and enemies in the marching order have activated, there is an end phase where events and conditions are resolved, and then initiative cards are shuffled to create a new marching order and a new round begins. The only other thing of note is that as a group, the heroes have access to a pool of communal resources. They have 3 charms which will replenish all of one hero's fate tokens, 3 healing potions which can be used when a hero is defeated to clear all of their wounds and conditions and prevent the loss of the encounter, 3 campfires, which they can use when no enemies are present to rest, which heals 1 wound and removes any conditions on all heroes in the party, and 3 magic staves, which can be used to remove a dead end from the board to allow heroes to continue exploring an otherwise blocked route. Interestingly, these resources are not just for the current encounter, but for the entire campaign. They are only refreshed under certain conditions, so players should try not to use them unless they really have no other choice. It's a nice bit of resource management folded into the hack and slash exploration of the core gameplay loop. And of course there is so much more to the game than I have covered here. There are cool boss fights with enemies that have multiple initiative cards shuffled into the marching order. There's randomly placed loot to find, new equipment to use, new abilities to learn, wandering monsters that prowl the board, and an in-depth story to work through. Where that story will go, I cannot say. I have only seen the demo kit, and the demo is just the beginning. Before I sign off, I do just want to address something important. Steamforged Games have taken the opportunity to revise and update the rules for Bardsung, and there are some significant changes that existing players should be aware of. If you have watched through the whole video to this point, I am sure you will have already noticed some of them. One of the biggest is that some stats have been decentralized. Attack range, attack modifier and attack damage are no longer tied to a hero's profile, but are instead part of the abilities they use. This opens up the design space for more interesting abilities and how they are upgraded. Also, fate is now no longer a communal resource. Heroes have their own pool of fate, giving each player greater agency and creating more opportunities for teamwork. Players will have to choose whether to commit their valuable fate to help other players or keep it for themselves. Combat has also seen a significant change, with attacks resolved on 2d6 rather than a d20. Of course, the problem with rolling a d20 is the probability is a flat line. You have as much chance of rolling a 1 as you do a 20. But with 2d6 you have a bell curve, with a result of 7 being much more likely, while a score of 2 or 12 is an outlier. Additionally, monsters now spread out more, allowing for greater use of movement abilities, and there is even a cool system where some monsters will have their standard behaviour overwritten by a new behaviour based on how they come into play. The designers are promising less fights in general, but the fights that will occur are going to be more meaningful, with more interesting choices to make and greater opportunities for strategy as heroes deal with enemies that are attacking from multiple places at once. Also playing into this is the revised wandering monster system, which keeps the pressure on as the game progresses. The challenge system has also been revised, incorporating the ability for several heroes to work together, but at the increased risk of all those heroes involved suffering the negative consequences if things go wrong. Add in lots of other cool stuff like more narrative to drive the story, larger text and icons on cards, and a smaller game map so the game isn't such a table hog, and it seems there will be plenty here for fans to be excited about. And perhaps enough reasons for those who may not have enjoyed Bardsung to take a closer look at this new edition. Changes of this nature do create issues with compatibility between old and new content, but there will be an upgrade kit for Bardsung Legend of the Ancient Forge, so you can play it with the new rules or port enemies from the Forge into the Forsaken Glade. And as an added bonus, if you backed the first Bardsung crowdfunding campaign, you will receive that upgrade kit for free if you make a pledge in this new campaign. If you want to know more, or if you want to sign up to be notified when the Gamefound campaign goes live, check out the link in the video description below, because that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.